Welcome to 30 Days of Recovery Awareness. My name is Raquel Lopez, and I am so glad that you are here today. We are just about to dive into day 6 of 30, and I would love for you to subscribe at Raquel Lopez so you can go back and hear 1 through 5, and then also be notified for the rest of the series. It is something that I hope and pray is a blessing to you. And as you continue on this either self discovery journey with recovery, or you're here for a just information for a loved one, and just kind of trying to learn about recovery and addiction for yourself, I am glad that you have found my channel so you can just hear a little bit more about that. So let's dive in. We are going to be talking today about overcoming guilt and shame. And honestly, guilt and shame isn't exclusive to addiction or recovery. It is something that is a common feeling and thought. And so just know that a lot of these concepts are ones that you can take and learn and grow from yourself, even if you're not in recovery or don't have, an addiction. And we talked about that over the past few episodes. So many of these things are buildable and on top of each other as far as the 1 through 30 episodes. And then also just the concepts in general. I'm going to be talking about some throughout all 30, and some of them will build on each other. Some of them you'll kind of hear weaved in and out. Sometimes I'll expand on a certain concept. Sometimes I'll talk about them, just like little pieces of them. So just know that, each episode is kind of a standalone, and also, just kind of like the tip of the iceberg in the whole recovery process. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to drop them in the chat or the comment section, and I will get back to you as I see them. So last week, we talked a little bit about accountability in recovery and how that can have a impact, a really positive impact on your recovery. And so make sure that you're going back and checking that one out. And so, yeah, I just know the impact that guilt and shame had on my own personal addiction. It kept me out there and stuck in the cycle of addiction for so long. And we talked about that in episode 2, just understanding addiction in general. And so it is that cycle of the guilt and the shame. And when you feel the guilt and the shame, you want to just numb that out and not feel the guilt and the shame. So then you use again. Then you feel guilt and shame again because you used or you did something while you were using, or, it's just that cycle, and this repetitive cycle that you can get stuck in. And it can be really debilitating. And it's just such a frustrating cycle to be in. And let me tell you, I have 16 years clean and sober now, but I can remember like it was yesterday, that cycle and the feelings that kind of arise in that cycle of the guilt and shame and the using, and just the triggers it all causes, and the pain that it causes. And so I wanted to bring this series to you guys because it is just near and dear to my own heart. And if I can help even just one person not have to go through some of the pain and suffering and frustration that I did, it is worth it to me to share and talk about some of the things that I have been through. So, what is guilt and shame? So let's just kind of start there. So guilt is I did something bad. It is that, the actions, whether it's the remorse, it's the regret of something that, that I've done. And so that is what guilt is. And honestly, guilt can be kind of a motivator in change if you take that and start working on yourself. It can be a really healthy feeling, quote unquote, healthy feeling, if it starts that positive change, to either making amends or making some big changes in your life. And shame is not I did something bad, but I am bad. Like fundamentally, I am unworthy. And that can be super toxic. Shame is something that causes low self esteem and self destructive behaviors. And so you can see how both of these things can lead to wanting to numb out and not feel. You don't want to feel. I didn't want to feel the guilt. I didn't want to feel the shame. And so I used drugs and alcohol and actions to numb myself out and not feel and not think about those things. And it kept me out for a really long time until I was willing and able to start dealing with those feelings and emotions. So it can definitely, for me, also it led to depression and just that feeling of unworthiness. And I'm like, if I didn't think I was worthy and I didn't care about myself, why would I change? If it didn't matter. And so that was like some of that self talk, and we'll talk a little bit about negative self talk here in a second. But definitely, if not addressed, it will lead to relapse and just that continual addictive cycle. So we really want to, break those things, right? Breaking that cycle is so important. And there is the role of forgiveness in that can help and start breaking that cycle, whether it be forgiveness of self or forgiveness from others. And I just kind of want to share a little caveat is we can expect other people to forgive us, and so that can that can lead to a whole nother a whole nother thing. But really being able to initially, if you are caught in some of those cycles of guilt and shame, beginning to kind of stop and breathe and offer some of that grace and self forgiveness to yourself, and really start working on those feelings to be able to start making some changes for yourself. And just know that if you are someone who is here, learning about this because of a loved one, offering that forgiveness can be a huge help to somebody who's out there in addiction. And I know we talked, a few episodes back about boundaries and about support. And it's not to just say everything they did is fine, and it's not to say it doesn't matter what they did and their actions don't have consequences. That's not what it is. It's about, it's about forgiveness. And so that is definitely something that we're going to be talking more about too down the road. But I just kind of wanted to kind of drop a little bit of that in there so you can kind of know that forgiveness plays a big role in breaking these cycles of guilt and shame. So practically, what can you do? One of the things, the basic thing, and the first step, and that level that you want to start at is feeling the feelings. I know. Feeling the feelings of guilt and shame is not easy, and it is something that can cause a lot of pain, right? For so long, I wanted to numb out and not feel the feelings. And so it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to feel those feelings of guilt and shame. And so know that it's a big deal, and it's brave to stop and want to break out of that addictive cycle. And it's hard. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it and we wouldn't have any issues and there wouldn't be addiction, right? It's not an easy thing. And so just know that feeling those instead of suppressing them is the first step, which brings in that self compassion and that self forgiveness, and really getting to a place that you recognize everybody makes mistakes. And again, that's not co-signing what happened. It's not saying that what you did was okay or what I did was okay. It's not giving permission to keep doing it. That's not what the self compassion and that self forgiveness or someone else's forgiveness is in your life. It's just acknowledging the fact that a mistake was made. And whether it be from you or from someone else, knowing that and knowing that you're worthy of forgiveness, you're worthy of healing, you are worthy of that. There is a plan and a purpose for your life. And so just understanding that everybody makes mistakes, nobody's perfect. And that just on a fundamental level can be a really big deal to someone changing. And for me, that was accepting that was a huge, huge step in my own life to start building some of that compassion and self love, um, and love from others that I needed to start making some big changes in my life. The next one would be making amends. So again, you go from feeling the feelings to self compassion and grace, and then making amends. And again, that's not saying amends is not saying that what they did is okay, right? Making amends for somebody, and that's why support and accountability and sponsors and groups of people who have been through addiction is so important to have those people in your life, because there's going to be a time and a place making amends is good. There's going to be a time and a place making amends isn't great, right? And so being around other people who have been in recovery and gone through some of these steps and principles and learning all of these things is going to really help you in your recovery and in the process and the journey of recovery and healing from addiction. And so it is making the amends where possible, whether it's an apology, a change in behavior, or an act of service to others. And so those are all steps that would be really great to talk to an accountability person before going to somebody else. Really working on our own self forgiveness and your own side of the street before starting to go out and doing the other people's forgiveness and the other people's amends, making those things for yourself, because we need to get healing first before we start moving forward, in all of it. And sometimes when we jump the gun and start doing, the further along steps first, it can really, really cause some damage along the way. So you really want to find people in your life that you can really talk these through before just going out and doing some of these steps. And then it's reframing our negative thoughts. And I talked a little bit about that a little bit ago, but just reframing how we talk to ourselves. It's really easy for me to say negative things about myself. It is something that I have learned to do along the way. It is something that I, did for a long time. It just comes second nature to put myself down and say that I'm bad and say, just really hurtful things that I honestly would never say to somebody else, but I find so easy to say to myself. And so really it's reframing those negative thoughts. For example, just saying, I'm a failure. That taking that negative thought and reframing it into, I made a mistake, but I'm learning and growing. And just how that little bit of change and tweak of verbiage in your mind can really start changing your heart. Our thoughts are really powerful. And so being able to change our thoughts and offer grace is really important. And speaking of grace, being able to, encourage prayer and meditation in your life and finding some of those spiritual practices that are going to help you on this journey of recovery. And it's seeking those people out that maybe have what you desire in their spiritual practices, and really getting some peace and healing by learning about grace. That was something that worked for me. That was something that was huge for me. I had to learn about grace. I had to learn about these concepts that I knew a little bit, but I really needed to, dive into and understand fully so that I could really start making some big changes in my life. And so finding those people in your life that have the peace, that have been through some similar situations. And like I said, we talked about the support systems a few episodes back and accountability last episode and really and we even talked about faith, the very first foundational piece of, faith and how that can be such a help in your recovery was talked about also. So really going back and listening to some of these past episodes is going to be really helpful as you go on. But I just want to encourage you that guilt and shame is, like I said at the beginning, not exclusive to addiction and not exclusive to recovery and learning and growing. It is something that I think everybody can relate to. I think everyone can relate to feelings and, having making mistakes and, having failures in their life. And honestly, I don't like the word failure. I don't think failure has a stance. If you take those failures and you learn from them, are they really failures? Or are they tools to learn and grow and move forward and taking those things that you've been through to turn them around and really make a lasting change and impact on your future? That is not a failure. That is just a stepping stone to, to help better your life. And so, just like I talked about earlier, how guilt can be a catalyst almost in change. And if you decide to change and use those things, those feelings to make those changes, it can be a huge catalyst in recovery and getting to that other side. So I just want to encourage you that you're not alone. I want to encourage you to start kind of writing some of those feelings, and reflect. How can I forgive myself for doing A, B, C, and D? And really talking to somebody, talking to those mentors in your life, talking to those accountability people in your life, and really getting down to some of those root feelings and changing that talk, that self-talk that we can so easily fall into. Really getting a chance to change that and make those shifts in our life. And we're going to be moving next episode into some self-care and how that can be a help in recovery as you continue along this journey together. So I'm excited for the potential that you have on this journey as we continue to embark on these 30 days. And I can't wait to be back together again as we get a chance to talk about self-care and how that can be a big um, a big win for you and your loved ones. So until next time, make sure to drop a comment or say hi and let me know what you think. And if you have any questions, I would love to know that too. And I love you. I'm rooting for you. There's a plan and a purpose for your life. And don't quit until the miracle happens. See you guys next time.